And there is some area, I kind of walked, kind of around there, different ways you look at it, it's. Yeah, you don't really.
But from all the way downtown.
Ready, Gwen?
Okay. Ready? Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the City of Washington, Missouri Board of Adjustment meeting for Tuesday, February 15th, 2022. I call this meeting to order. Gina, will you give a roll call, please?
Gwen Montal.
Here.
Kevin Creedy.
Here.
Lloyd Meissner.
Here.
Susan Harms.
Here.
Jason Appellant.
Here.
Sal Maniaci.
Here.
Will you please stand and join me in a pledge of allegiance? Gentlemen, remove your caps. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We last met May 4th, 2021. Does anyone want to take a look at the minutes and approve or change?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, minutes are passed. Okay, next, we're looking at file number 22-0206, appeal of the disguise of the cell tower at 602 Alberta Lane. Sal?
Yes, thank you. I'll do a quick presentation, overview of the application and a little history, and then we can open it up for comments. So just a quick overview of the property we're looking at in question, 602 Alberta Lane, is an industrially zoned property on the southern edge of Alberta Lane, close to the termination of it. It's just north of the storage units and then the old bowling alley, which is now CCS and Fast Trip offices. So we're aware of the location where we're talking tonight. A little background, so the applicant, Tower Co., on behalf of a co-applicant of AT&T, they actually applied for an undisguised monopole traditional tower on this location in February of 2021, so a year ago. And it went to Planning and Zoning Commission. It did pass at Planning and Zoning Commission, and then it went to City Council, and City Council actually denied the application in February of 21 as well. So the application was actually denied for a monopole tower. They waited a number of months. You can see a disguised cell tower application was submitted to staff in July of 2021. The tower was completed January of this year, so just a month ago, was finalized and turned on, and then appeal was submitted by members of the adjoining neighborhood in February of 2022, so this month. And just a little history here of how this came to be, as well as, because we haven't seen an application like this. According to section 400.540, just typically we look at variances to setbacks and height and that sort of thing. But in that code for the Board of Adjustment, powers of the Board of Adjustment, any person has the ability to appeal city staff's interpretation of the code. So if city staff issues a permit based on issues or denies a permit based on their interpretation, anyone in the public can appeal that and say, no, we're interpreting the code differently. Let's go to the Board of Adjustment and make a decision on if that permit should have been issued or not. So that is the code that they are applying under today. So when in July of 2021, there was an application submitted for a disguised tower, and I'm not expecting anyone to read all of this, but I just wanted to put the code section in here that staff reviewed. So in section 400.325, it lists permitted uses for a wireless telecommunications tower, and that second highlighted section there, wireless facilities and support structures which met any of the following criteria may be constructed, repaired, or modified upon receipt of a building permit issued by the building official, meaning that it does not have to go to Planning and Zoning Commission or City Council for review if it meets any of these listed. And this is not all of them. I just cut it off there when it got to the disguised support structure. So at the bottom there, the installation of a disguised support structure and related wireless facilities as part of a building or structure that is otherwise allowed in the district which is located, this being industrially zoned property, and it matching that facility of a disguised support structure, we determined that it was a permitted use that did not have to go in front of the Plain Zoning Commission or City Council for review. And the biggest sticking point there is that, okay, does it meet the definition of a disguised support structure? So section 400.320 of City Code defines a disguised support structure as any freestanding man-made structure designed for the support of wireless facilities, the presence of which is camouflaged or concealed as an architectural or natural feature. Such structures may include, but are not limited to, clock towers, campaniles, observation towers, pylon sign structures, water towers, artificial trees, flagpoles, or light standards. So that is the definition that staff is reviewing when applications come in to determine if it meets that. If it does meet that, then it is an internal review approved by staff without going to a public hearing. So the application that was submitted, I didn't put all the attachments in here with the site plan. Obviously, they went into all that, but that's not really what we're discussing tonight. The two main submittals that they put for us to be able to say it met the artificial tree section of that definition. As you can see here, they call this a monopine, and they showed that it met, or that they are defining it as a disguised support structure per the fake branches that get put up, and then having it be a monopole and not a one that branches out with multiple support guides on the way down. Called a monopine for that main monopole that looks like a pine tree. We actually did go back and request more information before we issued it. We said, okay, well, this could meet the definition of an artificial tree, but we need to know, the color of it. Just by this black and white, we wanted to know make sure it wasn't going to be pink and green. They came back and said, no, this is the color scheme of it with the green branches and brown painted monopole sign, or monopole structure. So. Per that, when we reviewed it, in accordance with the definition, again, with Section 320 that defines it, and 325E that allows it to be a permitted use, staff approved the application as submitted. And so that is kind of the background of why staff issued it as is. So I'd be happy to answer any questions from you all, or we can open it up to the public. So.
It doesn't look like the board has any questions for you, Sal.
Thank you.
Okay, our next step then is to go with the appellants. You may come up to the microphone, state your name, you'll be sworn in, and talk to us.
We got a whole lot to say. My name's Ron Lindenbrink. I live right.
Raise your right hand. Do you swear for the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Do I need to state my name and all that?
Yes, if you.
My name's Ron Lindenbrink. I live at 609 Commodore Drive, right below the pole. When we voted this down last February, nobody mentioned anything about being able to come back and put a disguised tower in there.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I mean, if this tree is what they call a disguised tower, I got a few words I could say. It ain't even nothing disguised about that. That thing sticks out like a sore thumb. You can see it from past the hospital coming closer to City Hall. We'd be better off with a regular tower there. And I don't understand why we weren't informed about the regulations when we voted it down in February. We should have been told that in 90 days from now, they can come back and apply for a special use permit, which was never, ever mentioned to anybody, which to me is the city is not really participating with the residents in that subdivision. They're coming in, basically doing what they want. And that thing, like I say, that tree, that don't look like no tree, does it? I mean, everybody's seen it. Anybody that lives in Washington, that thing sticks out, like I said. It's an actual. And I just thought I'd put my 2 cents in it. If I can do anything else to stop it or get it taken down, I'm gonna.
Thank you, Mr. Lindenbrink.
Do you swear from the testimony you're about to give will be the nothing but the truth.
Yes.
Thank you.
My name is Amy Howell. I live at 614 Commodore Drive, right below the tower in the cul-de-sac. I just kind of want to reiterate what Ron had just said. My fear is that this is going to start being the landscape of Washington. This is the first tower in our town like this. Obviously, we didn't have a lot of control over it. So let this be a lesson learned if it has to be. But we don't want our landscape to look this way. We don't want Washington to have that stigma, I guess I could say. I can't tell you how many times people have commented, whether it's on social media or where it is, about that stupid tree that's up in Washington. What is that thing? It just, to me, it's not disguised. Usually something that's disguised is something that's not noticeable. It's not saying that it doesn't look like a tree. It could look like a tree, maybe in the state of Washington. But it just, it doesn't fit our neighborhood. It's kind of like putting a huge palm tree there. I mean, it wouldn't fit in our landscape. So I just want to be able to say my 2 cents as well. And it just doesn't affect me or just right our little cul-de-sac. It affects all of Washington, and especially anybody who lives on the east side of town that drives by. Like Ron said, you can see it coming down Fifth Street. It's not just an eyesore for us, it's an eyesore for a lot of people. But I just feel like I had to say my 2 cents. I don't know at this point that things can be changed, but I will fight until it can be, or at least there's something changed in the bylaws so that we can prohibit this. Because as Ron stated, in February when we came, and the city council even voted the tree down, or the tower down, we had no idea they could come back as a disguised tower and it wouldn't have had to be voted in. So we feel as a neighborhood that we were kind of taken advantage of is not the right word. I want to say that we feel like we were kind of misled, and all of a sudden, whether we wanted it or not, the cell tower came. So that being said, that's really all I had to say about it. I know our neighborhood's upset about it. And again, as a resident of Washington, I don't want to see this all through the town. So thank you.
Thanks, Mrs. Howell. Would anyone else like to speak against?
Yes. Do you swear from testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. Thank you. My name is Katie Lindenbrink, and I live at 609 Commodore Drive. And my husband and Amy both mentioned their concerns about it. All of us, it's not concerns, it is the way it looks. And they were mentioning also about how you can see it from far away. I'm not sure if any of you have driven around in town and tried just to look at it from distances. When you come down Highway 100 and turn on right on South Point Road, as soon as you pass that car wash, it's the first thing you can see. You can see the cell phone tower from, I guess it is the original one on the flagpole, and then you look a little bit to this way, and then you can see the next one. And it is unsightly. I realize that cell phone towers are a necessity for communication, but it is not disguised. I think they could do a better job. They have the technology and the resources to do something better. I would like, if it has to be there, for them to do something better, make it better. I think our city deserves that, and I think we as a neighborhood deserve that. There are people that, as Amy mentioned, that talk about the tree, and I even had people from out of town come in, and that was one of the first things they said when we were together, was that big tree in the middle of nowhere. And it's kind of embarrassing. And again, for anyone that is here from AT&T or wherever, like I said, I would like something better. We deserve something better. And that's my 2 cents.
Thanks, Mrs. Lindenbrink. Any others?
Got a question.
Sir, ask away.
Do I get need to swear in again?
So just state your name again, though.
before this thing was actually.
It's Ron
approved
Linenbrink.
For the permit, did anybody get to see a picture of what it was gonna be like in the very beginning? I mean, they just said, they applied for the permit, and then they said, oh yeah, we can disguise it and make a tower in and say, okay, you got the tower?
We did
I
see
mean,
this.
Obviously, if somebody would've seen it before they put it up, they'd have seen what it looked like. And being I think it's a little bit shorter than what they wanted, 155 foot now, I believe. I mean, if it'd been another 10 or 20 foot like they wanted, my God, you'd probably see it from Union. I mean, I just wonder if anybody's seen pictures of it, and why they would let that thing, I know it's pretty, but.
Yeah, I mean, that's what was submitted.
The drawing was what was submitted, not
Pardon me?
photos. The drawing was the only thing submitted?
Yeah, and then this photo.
And then we went, okay, and that photo.
I didn't hear it, I'm sorry.
The drawing
Yeah.
and then this photo was submitted as part of the
That's just
package.
the drawing before they put the ornaments on it that went around it.
Right.
When they put them things on there, it was god ugly. I mean, it still is, they put some green astroturf on the outside of the brown or the silver, but it's still, it's terrible looking. The regular old cell phone tower would've been better.
Thank you. Anybody else want to speak against?
Do you swear from the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Hi, I'm Lisa Holdmeyer, and Dale and I are here on behalf of the subdivision. I bump off of everything they just said, and it is a disgrace. A lot of people come in from different places, and they are not, I mean, we went from a toilet bowl brush, I'm sorry, but we did, to what is this? You know, it's like, is this really what Washington needs? Being told we're a toilet bowl brush? That's pretty sad, pretty sad. My thing is there a way, and I know there's other places in other towns have these, but they have branches all the way down. So it's been, we were told that. I've never seen it, but workers that came into Washington from another town said, we have one of them, but they don't look like that. There's branches all the way down. So maybe you want to look in onto that. If we're going to keep it, maybe it'll help it. So, but that hurt when they said toilet bowl brush. That's hard. I like my town. So think about it, okay?
Thanks, Mrs. Holdmeyer. Anyone else? Okay, if we're done with anybody speaking against our cell tower, would anyone like to speak in favor of it? No takers. Okay. Does the board have any questions of any of the witnesses who came up? I'm not sure what comes next.
I know.
Can we ask
What questions,
a
Dan?
question of, is somebody here with AT&T for the poll? Can we ask them I mean, what, I guess my question is there any kind of, I see the sketch that was submitted, and I see the plan, and I see this, obviously the photo. Is this a typical design? I mean, they're talking about in other places they've seen more branches. I mean, is there any variance in this, or is this a typical design for a artificial tree?
Come on.
Raise your right hand. Do you swear affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And please state your
Hi, Matt Schlichter, Network Real Estate. To answer your question, this is actually
The original design had for a little bit less, what we call branch density on it. And given the public feedback that we've heard when Sal reached out to us, they actually went back and added to it to make it even more dense. And when did additional camouflage measures to paint the antennas, they put camouflage socks on top of the equipment and the antennas that are up there. So we are trying as much as we can to add to the concealment of the branch density that was originally planned, to add to the artificial tree element that is designed originally for the site.
Can you put more branches on this one to look, that go all the way down like the young lady said?
The problem with it, if you start adding more branches to those things, the more those things stand off of the pole, the heavier they get.
Can you use the mic there?
Sorry, is this better? When you start talking about adding to it, to make it look aesthetically, to the branch density that's up there now, the more they go down the pole, they're gonna have to get bigger and wider as they go down. Those also mean that they're gonna be longer. Those are heavier. Those are adds to the weight of the pole, things like that too. So there's just a lot of elements that go into additional equipment at this point, given what was already submitted and approved by staff.
So you're saying it can be done?
Theoretically, yes, but if you do it at this stage in the game, to add to an existing pole that's up in the air right now, it would add some elements that would take kind of what we, as hard as this thing is to say, but add to the aesthetic of what's already up there right now to make it draw even more attention to it.
Do we have any better options for a disguise for this pole? Because clearly it's wearing a disguise.
Yeah.
It's a disguise that makes it stand out instead of hide.
Yeah, and we understand that. We definitely understand that. When we work with staff to understand the definition of the codes as it's currently stated right now, we did everything that we could to comply with the codes the way it's written right now. That's what was approved when our plans were submitted. I understand that there's some feedback tonight against what's written in the codes, but all we can do is comply with what is currently written right now and submit plans to be approved and go from there. And that's what has been done with this particular site, unfortunately.
Sure. Thank you. Anybody else?
Oh, a question.
Come on, kids, speak up.
I'll speak up.
Yes, go.
I have to agree, it is a hideous looking structure. And I have to agree, if it was a straight galvanized pole, it would look better than what's out there. You'd know what the purpose of it is, right? I mean, right now, you don't know what the purpose of this thing is because it stands out so much. Saying that, I believe it does meet the definition of a disguised pole. Now, the bad thing is, I think our code is very lacking in definitions of, it could have been a billboard. It could have been a 150-foot tall billboard if you read this code. There could have been a sign on it, because it's allowed as a disguise, even though the billboard's not allowed in that zoning district, as a disguised pole, it is. It's kind of an oddity in there, I believe, that goes through. It could have been a clock tower, it could have been all kinds of things that are disguised, but as Amy it doesn't fit the neighborhood. If it doesn't fit the neighborhood, it's not disguised. It's supposed to blend in with the surroundings, not stand out, and that's the problem we have here. So, as a disguised tower, I think it meets that definition. The one thing I want to call to light, can you pull the wireless code up? Go to permitted uses E, the one on the bottom. Disguised support structure, installation of disguised support structure and related wireless facilities as part of a building or structure that is otherwise allowed in the district in which it is located. Now, if you go to the zoning district, the maximum height of a structure that is allowed in that district is 45 feet. There's 3 stories or 45 feet. I think that's where the argument is. This thing's 155 feet tall. Even as a disguised tower, if the disguised tower is allowed, the height is not allowed. I believe. That's the way I read that line to say. If the tower was 45 feet or less, you could have that tree in there and it'd be no problem. But once you get above that requirement, I think you're now getting into a permitted use. That would be my recollection of the zone. I don't know if anybody else has that same feeling or not.
My question centers around disguise. Is the pole disguised, or is the purpose of the disguise so you don't notice it? there's, I mean, to me, that's
So
two
it's
different.
ambiguous, it does,
Right.
code doesn't give clarity that it needs to be.
Correct.
Which at that time probably goes to the freedom of the permittee and not the city to designate which,
Right.
how they interpret it.
Okay, once upon a time, Mark, we kicked this back to city council to write a better code.
Well, you need to make a decision on this application, but you can do so with a recommendation to the council to revisit the code. I will tell you, though, that in my experience, and I haven't looked at everybody's codes, but I looked at enough of them to see that the definition that's used in our code for disguised support structure is fairly common. It's fairly consistent from city to city. Now, there's some minor modifications, but by and large, it's the same nearly word-for-word definition from city to city. And I think those definitions probably come from the American Planning Association, which has sort of some models that they use nationwide. So it's not unique to Washington.
This code was rewritten in 2017 from a consultant, PGAV, out of St. Louis, that according to them, when we contract with them, they wrote it in accordance with the state law that passed in 2014. That's what they told us when we passed this in 2017.
Surely, we're not the only city that has run into poorly disguised cell towers. Maybe we're the only city who cares.
It's only a problem when it's a problem, right? I mean, that's the deal.
Is there any state or federal regulations on this type of thing?
Not on what a disguised support structure has to look like, no. No.
I feel like the complainants are upset, one, because it happened in their neighborhood and they felt like they should have had some sort of say, because the tower, apparently there was a tower that was supposed to be built there before, if I understand correctly. And then you guys came to a meeting and it was denied, and then this one came. I feel like you're upset about that initially.
It was supposed to be taller. It was supposed to be,
Oh, the first
She
one.
needs to step in.
Yep. This is Leonard Brink, will you come up?
the original proposal was for, I believe, it was a lot taller, the original one.
180, I think.
180. So that was the initial thing that we were opposed against. Not only that, but also there was a cell phone tower, not even a quarter mile back. Like if you look at Burger Park, right up from Burger Park, there's a flagpole there, and there's one there. And our issue was at the time also as, why do we need a second cell phone tower when there was already one within distance that provided the same service? And so that's what we were appealing. And I thank God that we came in February and said our piece then, even though, you know, it ended up with the way it is now, but it would have been godforsaken taller than what it is now. And it looks awful. And there's not one person in this town that doesn't say that that doesn't look obnoxious. And I mean, we hear it more often, maybe because we live on that end of town, maybe because we're affected by it, maybe because we're sensitive to because we live there. But either way, that is how it originated. Thank you.
Thank you.
I did want to make one comment. Some of the testimony was that the city didn't advise anyone that if the original application was denied, that they could come back for a disguised support structure, and they didn't require the same process. And I pulled up the minutes from the city council meeting on February 16th of 2021, and there was, I guess the issue came up at that point, and Sal made this comment, which I was pretty sure I remembered. and he says, and I quote, "If you would disguise a tower as a flagpole, you actually don't have to get a special use permit as long as it meets setback requirements." And that was denied by council back, I guess it was over a year ago at this point, so I don't know if their capacity is with more cylinder, which I'm not sure that's correct, but, so it was pointed out to the people who were at the public hearing at the council that if the monopole was denied, that they could come back with a disguised support structure and it wouldn't require city council approval, planning and zoning review, none of that. So I'm not saying people misspoke, but, you know, people may not remember, and I know I was at a lot of meetings where this came up, so.
Does the board have any other questions or comments?
I think it's odd that the code makes distinction between disguised poles and not disguised poles, especially if you look at location setback requirements. There's location setback requirements for a pole, but if you decorate it, it's not. Pole's still gonna fall over, still gonna hit stuff. Don't know why a decorated pole doesn't need to have setback requirements. It's an oddity, and I believe a lot of these codes are pulled from other codes. They don't write these things from scratch for the most part, but like I said, it's not a problem until it's a problem. And it gets specific. This is a specific location. This pole could have been, you know, stuck someplace else and not have a single issue, but, and I'm an AT&T customer, and I live in Stonecrest, and I got one bar in my house, believe it or not. So, believe me, I love good phone service, but, I still go back to the fact that I think if it's over 45 feet, it requires a special use permit.
Okay.
Especially when it's representing Washington, Missouri.
I would be concerned, somebody asked for more tree limbs, and you spoke about heaviness of tree limbs. I live near a woods, and what happens when it's windy or there's snow or ice? Tree limbs come down, so I would just be concerned about that. Me too. Especially because there's minimal setback. Okay. Do we need any more discussion?
I'm fine.
No? No? All right, Sal, what's next? Ask for a vote?
Well, I'll have Mark correct me. You can either accept the testimony and meet again, or make a vote tonight. I don't,
Yeah, you can the first thing you should do is close the hearing. And once you've done that, you can either make a decision tonight, or you can think about it and come back another meeting and take a vote. I've drafted a proposed resolution, findings of fact and conclusions of law. You can use that, you can discard it, whatever you want to do with it. But you either need to make a decision tonight, or you need to come back in another meeting and take a vote. And there's no deadline when you need to make a decision. It just says within a reasonable time.
Okay. First step is to close the hearing. Does anybody else want to speak at all about this situation? Mr. Lindenbrink, come on up.
Sal had showed a picture of that tower in the beginning where it looked like the disguised tree, you know? But when you look at that tree, the picture that, when I asked if anybody had seen the picture, now there ain't no antennas or nothing on that tree, see it? That's what they showed in the beginning. There's no antennas or nothing sticking off of it. So that picture can't possibly be what the tree looks like.
What I read, according to my notes, was this was the actual, just like any other box of cereal, the actual representation may look slightly different.
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
So-
that tree there that they said they seen picked up, what the pictures
Yep.
would have been shown, showed nothing else sticking off of it, just
Right.
showed a tree.
I may be hard to see in this projection, but I mean, just say from what we reviewed, staff was fully aware that there was gonna be antennas inside of this when it was approved. I
At the
mean,
top.
Who was aware of that?
when we reviewed that, we knew there was gonna be antennas, and you could, the plans show it
Well,
on there.
When I had asked if anybody
Hard
had
to
seen
see,
it, you pulled up the picture you had up there right before this one, that one there.
No, well, this was for the coloring.
Oh, the color?
Yeah, we wanted to know what the color was gonna look like.
Oh, see, I misunderstood.
So, yeah, and it even has a caveat in there. The final tower appearance may be slightly different than what this provides. We knew it was gonna look like, this. This was requested to verify the color, so they had to match that. After they submitted this, we went back to them and said, okay, what color is it gonna be? To make sure we had on record that it was gonna be
gotcha.
green and brown, and that's what was submitted.
All righty.
Okay, then, with no other words to say, I close the hearing on this. I thank all of you who came to speak up on its behalf, all of you who came up to explain more about the tower. Are you all ready to vote? Is a couple days going to change your mind?
I say I'm ready to vote.
I guess what's the vote?
So we're voting on whether or not
This is simply on what is in front
they
of us.
met the interpretation of what was in the code. Is that what we're?
So I guess with
Are
the
we
issue
voting-
that,
Are we voting that the
right.
permit is legal, or are we voting that it's a disguised tree or not?
well, if you read the text.
Your vote is either yes, you agree with Sal's determination that yes, this is a disguised support structure, or you're voting that no, his interpretation was incorrect under the code.
And then if we wanted to add something onto that, we could do that, or is that a separate meeting time? Or?
Well, for example,
What would you
I don't
use?
know. We were talking about,
Well, with a recommendation to the city council to tighten up the code, or,
yeah,
so we can
that
add-
would be after
an
you vote
addendum
on
to our
this
vote, yeah.
issue. Then if you felt there was a need to make some recommendation to the council, you take that up as a separate matter.
I think it's a disguised tree. I don't think it meets the code for height. It is a disguised tree. It's what the code says it is.
See, there is, and I'll correct me, in that section of code for telecommunications towers, it does allow structures up to, towers up to 200 feet.
Correct.
That limits the tower height, but it also states that the tower has to meet the requirements of the zoning district that it's in. So I can't go out and build a 250-foot tower, even without a special use permit. But if I stick that 200-foot tower in a zoning requires a tower that are a maximum height of 45 feet, then I gotta get a special use. The way I read it, that's the way I'm interpreting it.
I'll let Mark correct.
Yeah, I would disagree with that. The provision that specifically allows the towers of up to, I don't remember if it's 180 or 200 feet, that would override the height limitations in the zoning district for structures, for example, buildings.
I think we go back to the heart of what is the purpose of the disguise? It's to make it blend into the surroundings.
That's not in the code.
It's, I think it's a total interpretation. The presence of which is camouflaged or concealed as an architectural or natural feature.
Well, in the original meeting, the monopole,
Was
Rejected.
rejected based on height or based on undisguised?
It was a special use permit. It could have been rejected for anything.
yeah, I mean, it was open to other criteria, but now since it is a disguised structure, it doesn't have to, it meets a different criteria, it goes through a different approval process. But now you have this disguised structure, I mean, this versus the monopole, I mean, we have what we have at this point, but
The 200-foot limit's on any pole, right?
Correct.
the disguise pole requires, it's only the disguise pole that requires it otherwise allowed in the district in which it's located. You can get a special permit for a pole up to 200 feet. If you're gonna disguise it, you don't gotta get a permit, but to me, you then gotta follow the zoning requirements for the zone that it's in. And again, I seriously think the code needs to be relooked at, because all the way through this disguise pole, it says setback shall be this unless it's a disguise pole. I don't know why a disguise pole would change setback requirements, but there's 3 or 4 or 5 different things in there that need to be looked at as far as disguise poles go, but.
Well, when we've had issues like this before. The board has had to decide where the code, we weren't sure how the code was interpreted or how the process went, but what is our power is just, or our goal here is just to agree or disagree that this structure meets
Code.
the code
Correct.
of a disguised structure. That's what, I mean, I agree that, yeah, our code is, it needs some work.
I mean, you can't.
But again.
Code is a code, you can't catch every situation, which is why
Agreed.
we're here, right?
Agreed, but again,
If it
I'm
was
just
clear,
trying
we
to-
wouldn't be here.
Trying to focus on what, make sure we know what it is, so we are voting
Right.
here about this definition, if that meets it or if it does not meet it, as vague as it is.
Well, I went back to section 400.320. And that's where I'm getting the presence of which is camouflaged or concealed as an architectural or natural feature. So I guess, I'm not denying that it's disguised, but it is a horrid disguise. It's a bad disguise. It's not natural looking. So I feel like we're all like talking on different points of it, that you could argue against it on different points of it, but as it's written, I feel like we're interpreting it differently.
I guess that's a question mark. I mean, if we're all voting yes or no for different reasons, do we have to vote individually on each of those reasons? Seems odd that we could come up here and each vote it down for 5 different reasons and that would pass as a no or something along that line. But it seems to me if we're gonna vote for a reason, we should vote on each one of those reasons, whether or not, is it a disguised tree or not, yes or no? Does it meet the height requirements, yes or no? Otherwise, you're only getting 1 or 2 votes, you're gonna swing the whole thing.
Well, the only thing you're voting on is whether or not it's a disguised support structure. That was the appeal that was filed.
Okay.
Not that it didn't meet the height limitations or it exceeded the height limitations. The appeal was, this is not a disguised support structure.
Right, okay.
Okay. Do you need any more time? You guys need any more time? Okay. I feel a strong recommendation to kick this back to the city after we vote, figure out the code, straighten out the code. Okay.
Do we call, how do we?
Yep.
I think I'm-
Gina, we're
make a
calling for a
motion.
vote. Somebody want to make a motion?
Do you
I'll
make,
make a motion.
okay.
Okay. What's the matter with me? Lloyd has made a motion to vote. Anybody want a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Okay.
I'm not sure. What is the motion?
I guess.
To vote tonight?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just want me to just do roll call?
Yeah.
Okay.
So what's the yes, no, and what's the no vote?
It's right,
Yes is,
Well, wait a minute. Wait, that's why I asked the
that's, we
question.
need to read it.
No, that's why I asked the question. Or is the motion just to take a vote tonight? And then if that passes, then you'll vote tonight you'll
think
vote
that's
on the
fair.
particular issue?
I think
Yeah,
that's
you're
fair.
gonna vote twice?
Yes.
That's what I understood. Okay.
Wait.
I don't
Okay,
understand that.
so the
This vote is whether we
motion
should take a vote tonight or table it for.
is whether we vote tonight.
Oh,
So Lloyd motioned,
I say,
Vote
you
tonight.
seconded. Okay, so then we're calling on whether, a yes or a no whether we're voting tonight.
Or to table, okay.
Right.
Gwen Montal,
Yes.
Susan Harms,
Yes.
Kevin Creedy,
Yes.
Jason Pellin,
Yes.
Lloyd Meisner.
Yes.
All right, we are not tabling.
So then we read this?
Yeah. So then Gina, do you do a read of the, Sally, you do a.
Do I need to read the whole thing, or can we just make a motion? I do.
No, yes.
Okay. Well, don't hold your breath, you guys. This is Whereas the board does find and determine that the property in question, located at 602 Alberta Lane, is within the city limits of the city of Washington and is located in an M1 district pursuant to the city's zoning ordinance. And whereas City Code Section 400.325E permits locating a cellular communications tower as a disguised support structure in an M1 district. And whereas on or about June 30th, 2021, Tower Company, on behalf of AT&T, submitted an application to the City of Washington for a permit to construct a cellular communications tower at 602 Alberta Lane, Washington, Missouri. Whereas the applicant included such information as was required by the Director of Planning, including but not limited to, whereas the city's Planning and Engineering Services Department reviewed the application, the city's Director of Planning, zoning administrator, determined that the tower company proposed to construct a disguised support structure as that term is defined in section 400.320 of the city code and did not require a special use permit, and therefore the building department issued a permit for construction of the structure on or about July 30th, 2021. And whereas appellants filed their appeal on January 21st, 2022, arguing that the structure does not fall within the definition of a disguised support structure, and therefore the permit should not have been issued. And whereas appellants argued that the structure affects the neighborhood in which they live, but also can be seen from blocks away and in no way appears disguised. And whereas Section 400.540 of the Code of the City of Washington, Missouri, permits anyone aggrieved by any decision of the zoning administrator to appeal within a reasonable time as prescribed by the Board of Adjustment by filing with the zoning administrator and with the board a notice of appeal specifying the grounds thereof. And whereas the Board of Adjustment met on February 15th, 2022 to consider the appeal after first given not less than 15 days' notice to the Washington Missourian and given due notice to the parties in interest. And whereas the parties appeared, evidence was adduced, and the hearing was concluded. Now therefore, the Board of Adjustment does find and conclude as follows. The recitals above and hereby incorporated herein as if fully set forth. The structure meets the definition of a disguised support structure as found in section 400.320 of the Code of the City of Washington, Missouri. The structure is permitted in an M1 district without a special use permit as determined by the zoning administrator pursuant to section 400.325 of the Code of the City of Washington, Missouri. The zoning administrator's decision that the structure was disguised and did not require a special use permit was not an error in any order, requirement, decision, or determination by an administrative office official in the enforcement of Chapter 400 of the City Code. For all the reasons stated herein, the board does hereby affirm the determination appealed from. Gwen Montal,
No.
Susan Harms,
Yes.
Kevin Creedy,
No.
Jason Pellin,
Yes.
Lloyd Meisner.
No.
3 noes, 2 yeses. So I'll let Mark explain what's next. I don't know.
So the appeal does not succeed, and the tower will remain as it is.
No.
No.
Well, that's what you voted.
No.
No, yes mean,
Yes means you uphold everything, and no was
Right.
you reject.
And you had how many yeses?
3.
2.
2.
2 yeses.
3 no's.
And 3 noes, and it takes 4 to reverse.
Okay,
So you didn't have 4.
gotcha.
That's,
So a supermajority is required, is essentially. So the tower remains, okay.
So, and maybe I'm wrong, I thought we did discuss that we have to vote on this, and we did, but we wanted to, this needs to be kicked, I mean, we recommend that the code be looked at a little bit.
For clarity.
Well,
Yeah, I think
just
you
for the future from now. This is as vague can be, and I mean, I understand that a lot of municipalities have this, but again, if, I just, so that this doesn't happen again, or so that this vagueness doesn't get us again, I mean, maybe we need to revisit maybe some, tighten up those somehow, make some better
The
specifications.
way I read the code, somebody can go out there and stick a 200-foot billboard wherever they want, as long as they call it a Sky's cell tower.
And I think since we're still adjourned, you guys could make a motion to officially put that on record for staff to submit a report to council, or a recommendation to council.
I mean, I would like to make a motion. I mean, I think that's a pretty serious
I would second.
issue.
I don't know if I can second. Can I second?
If not, I will second.
Take a vote.
Oh, sorry.
Yep. I'm assuming I don't need to do roll call. All those in favor?
All in favor
Aye.
that the city would review this. Any opposed? No. Okay. I think we can adjourn the meeting. Thank you all for coming tonight.
Oh, we need a motion to
Do we need
adjourn,
a
I'm sorry.
motion to
I'll make a
adjourn?
motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Susan adjourn, motions. Any-
Second.
Lloyd seconds. Good night, everyone.
Your dad couldn't have done it any better. I was in
How did you know?
I was in one of those meetings once upon a time.